Welcome back to the Global Digital Asset Regulatory Summit. My name is Alec O'Sullivan. I'm the policy lead at DECA. Our next stop is India, a country whose scale and pace of change make it impossible to ignore. With one of the world's largest populations of developers and a rapidly growing digital economy, India is shaping how Web3 and digital assets evolve in practice. Moderated by Rehan D'Almeida, this fireside chat features Dilip Chenoy, chair of the Bharat Web3 Association. Together, they will explore how India is navigating regulation, the opportunities and challenges of building at scale, and what lessons can be drawn from one of the most dynamic markets in the world. Rehan, over to you.
Thank you, Alec, and congratulations on hosting such a kind of huge feat in hosting this event. So congratulations. And thank you all. Thanks for having me on this session. Dilip, great to meet you in person, virtually in person. And yeah, we'll jump right into it. We have 20 minutes and so much to cover. So yeah, straight into it. But before we begin, Dilip, a quick intro from yourself.
Okay, so good morning and thank you, DECA, for having me here. Once again, I think this is my second Global Regulatory Summit. Thanks, Rehan, for moderating this. I'm Dilip Chenoy. I chair the Bharat Web3 Association, and prior to this, I was the Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, which is India's oldest and largest trade body. BWA has about 47 members. We have exchanges, wallet providers, cybersecurity providers, chain companies, layer 1, layer 2, and a lot of individual people who give advice in taxation and legal regulatory stuff.
Thanks, Dilip. As you may know, Australia is currently buzzing from the draft legislation that was announced this morning. So much happening here in Australia that we're excited about. But we'd love to hear about India. If you could start with giving us a snapshot about where India currently stands in terms of, the regulation of digital assets.
Okay, so let me. I'll have to go back in time, and so it's the 2018, and 2017, 2016, 2017, India, the exchanges were very active, and they were hugely advertising during our Indian Premier League, which is a very major cricket tournament. And what we saw there was that the government then, the Reserve Bank of India, came out with a kind of ban on funding to the virtual digital asset service providers. And the industry contested that in 2000. Actually, the industry won the case in the Supreme Court of India. And therefore, then they started the whole thing of regulation. So the next important milestone was 2022, when the government sought the taxation route to kind of address the sector and introduced a 1% tax directed at source and a 30% taxation and not offsetting the losses. This was actually followed by a whole series of discussions with the Advertising Standards Council of India in terms of the whole advertisement code. Then came the anti-money laundering and the counter-terrorist financing, saying under the financial FIU, right, which is the Financial Information Unit, where all WASPs were defined, and they had to become reporting entities in terms of all AML and CFT transactions. Then Certain, which is our cybersecurity regulator, brought us into their framework. So we have different entities that regulate and administer different parts of the ecosystem. We don't have an overall legislative framework for virtual digital asset providers in India at this point of time. The Reserve Bank is kind of cautious here. So if I were to just give you a brief summary, it's the Reserve Bank remains cautious about private crypto as a potential threat to monetary policy and financial stability. There's revenue and tax clarity there is consumer retail protection and AML and CFT. Regulators are really concerned about retail losses and reporting trails and fraud and money laundering channels. And in parallel, the government is looking at a CBDC, central bank digital currency, and there's sandbox conversations going on here. More recently, we have actually aligned that India will adopt the OECD crypto asset reporting framework from April 2027. And in the budget of this year, 2025, we have new compliance and reporting requirements. The government has inserted a section which actually drives every reporting entities as exchange brokers and others to furnish transactions for crypto asset regulations, and all investors have to declare it in their returns. So that's a quick overview of where we are at the moment.
Thank you, Dilip. You've answered a lot of my questions in the beginning itself. Thank you for that. I think just, as you mentioned, the RBI is taking a very cautious approach. Are there any specific, guidelines or frameworks that are in place right now? And, is there any clarity or a better understanding of the timelines when you expect any form of draft legislation to come in?
Okay, so there are two things happening in parallel in India, right? I think one is if you go back in time, 2023, India actually proposed a global initiative under G20, right? So if you look at the G20, and then you had the IMF FSB crypto asset roadmap come in. So India is sort of in line with that, and by end 2025, we have to try and look at implementing FSP recommendations for crypto assets and stable coins, right? And of course, the data gap and the information collection as agreed or as given in those recommendations are there. And of course, I mentioned about the crypto asset reporting framework. Specifically, to the whole regulatory framework, there's a very, like you mentioned that this morning you have a draft regulation. Just a few weeks ago, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance invited the ministry and the other stakeholders there on to a discussion of the need or on crypto or virtual digital asset regulation. So that discussion has also gone ahead, and we believe that in line with what the international, our finance ministers always said, we need a global framework. So it's important, and if all the you have many associations actually speaking in this session during the day. I mean, I think it's now time for the private sector to unite across and have a unified voice against all for all the regulators in their own jurisdictions. India continues to be active in the G20, FSB, and IMF discussions, and seems to be a direction on the way forward, including the full implementation of the FATF travel rule for cross-border vast transactions and enhanced cross-border data sharing.
Great, thank you. That's a good segue to my follow-up question. Where are some of these use cases that are coming out of, within digital assets in India? Is it more payments or investments, or are there any other use cases or unique use cases you see that's really, picking up?
Okay. So, this is a very fascinating question, Rehan, because, we have 30 states, 30 states and union territories in India, and they have different, it's a federal system. So there are about close to 90 use cases of deployment of blockchain and virtual digital assets, right, across different jurisdictions. So, I'll give you 6 examples very, very quickly. So, we in the police use case, I mean, FIRs are being lodged using the blockchain. We issue certain certificates in India, which are, known as caste certificates, right? They have been in a district in Maharashtra. They have been put on the blockchain. Land records are being put on the on the blockchain. In fact, there is a Indian banking group. There is now known as the digital. Is earlier known as the Indian banking blockchain infrastructure. Company. It now has gone into the Indian digital infrastructure company. They are piloting use cases of using this in international trade, for letters of credit, and they've recently launched a whole pilot on MSME financial transactions. So these 15 banks and their associations are looking at how do you do this in the banking sector. We have the RBI sandbox, and we have the International Financial Center sandbox, and the Telangana government sandbox, which is looking at tokenization of real estate, which is looking at other applications, really in terms of tokenization in specific areas going forward. There are products that have been developed here which use the underlying layer 1 or layer 2 chains, which are really permissionless and decentralized chains for validation of education certificates, and 2 or 3 other companies in India have used it as a rewards program. We have 2 companies in India which are using Bitcoin as a treasury, as a treasury product. So there are different things happening in different states, and our Niti Aayog, which is a real, actually recognized a few of them as best cases and encouraging other states to progress. Of course, got a lot of private sector initiatives. We have our own Bharat box, here, which is the which is the metaverse ecosystem which they're trying to promote. We have fan code, which is into NFTs. We have other entities that are tokenizing music, doing smart contracts. So there are a lot of things. BWA has recently done a survey. There are over 1,000 plus startups here. We've actually documented 423 of them and what they're doing in India.
No, really exciting to hear so many of these use cases. How do you see industry and government work together? You did mention that the industry should come together to highlight these use cases and drive the policy forward. How do you see industry and government working together, and what can other jurisdictions learn from it?
So I think this is very important, because one of the things that, given the diversity of the types of regulators which are active in India, so we partner. What we have done at BWA is we brought out 4 of, and we're in the process of bringing out a 5th self-regulatory code. So we brought out a consumer guidelines, right? Which mandate, which provide guidelines for our members to comply with the advertisement code, to comply with the reporting framework, and to comply with the consumer laws in India. So the first thing here and is to really look at the different types of regulators who are there, get into a discussion with them, and ensure that we make them comfortable that we are compliant and that we are on the same side and mean to achieve the same thing. The second thing that we have done is that we've also brought out a token listing guidelines, and this was in response to a lot of things, that there are a lot of different types of tokens, some not necessarily good tokens, other different types of tokens. So how should exchanges, list tokens? Then there's a whole thing about this pump and dump and rug pulls and all of that. So we brought out fair trading guidelines again to give a confidence to the customers that are there. And unfortunately, two of our exchanges in India were subject to hacks, right, and cybersecurity incidents. So we worked with the certain to look at cybersecurity guidelines, and we put together a CISO group, which is there. We also work with other international jurisdictions to look at what is happening in their jurisdictions. And since this is a cross-border and transnational kind of a sector, we also talk to other people, and are there any discussion papers coming out in this jurisdiction? Can we get some of our members who are active in their jurisdictions, or can BWA actually put in a point of view which is very closely aligned or with the leaders in that jurisdiction? So I think this is very important because one of the fears in this whole sector is very easy to transfer virtual digital assets from one jurisdiction to another. So we need a kind of a coordinated approach, just like the regulators are coordinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the whole interoperable nature within cross jurisdictions is makes this a lot more complex, right? In terms of fintechs in India and companies within this space, how are they responding to these guidelines? Do you see more maturity in the sector? Do you see a lot more, what kind of what's the reaction within the industry itself?
So there are three things which are happening within the fintech industry, right? A lot of startups and a lot of established players are exploring the use of blockchain and the virtual digital assets in terms of fintech products. There are a lot of people who are looking at payments and especially remittances. As you know, India is one of the highest remittances country here, and the current system is very inefficient. It takes time and takes the remitter loses a lot of money. So they're looking at that. Although there are international examples which are there. So the second thing which the fintechs are doing is looking at traditional products. Let's say a credit card, supported by tokens, right? Or other payment things here. So I think that's what you're seeing. And the third area is, like I mentioned, the banks, right? How they are trying to look at tracking transactions and making the whole system frictionless, especially for medium and small industries.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's really, really interesting space overall. What suggestions or recommendations or advice would you have for Australian fintechs or international innovators in general on how they could, access, learn about, and potentially participate in the Indian digital asset ecosystem?
Okay, I think the first thing is that there are a lot of compliance requirements here in India. So I think we should come prepared to partner on compliance and payments integration. India is a huge market, and our UPI and our digital identity, which is Aadhaar, and our fast-growing CBDC pilot is there. Success in India means local partnerships, and of course, success means that you have to ensure that you comply with whatever regulatory system is in place. And I think the most important thing, and this goes back to your previous question, is that we need to look at products that solve real business problems, tokenization, supply chain utility, cross-border settlement, rather than speculative and retail plays. And I think one of the regulator keeps on asking 2 or 3 questions. What's the intrinsic value? What's the real use case scenario? And third, can you have, what's the transaction volumes? Because, we have systems that do, 300, 400 million transactions a month, right? And can these new layer 1 and layer 2 technologies actually have that same transaction volume. And of course, your one-stop solution to getting into India is the BWA.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting because India has set an example for the UPI framework and the digital ID framework globally. So it would be interesting to see how digital assets grows. One final question from me: your role? How can you support startups and innovators in this industry as part of BWA? What's your role, and how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so Ren, very simple. What we do is we have actually started a dialogue with different ministries in India, whether it is tourism and culture, whether it is Ministry of Information and Technology, or the states like Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh or Telangana, where we are trying to get them to look at regulatory sandboxes. We've also started a dialogue with the regulator because the RBI also has a sandbox. And very recently, just 3 days, 4 days ago, they announced an regulator sandbox thing. So there are different regulators, the SEBI, the RBI, others had different sandboxes. Now you can actually do that. And BWA is actually working with them to have it. And later this day in July, this evening at 4, we have the non-exchange committee meetings of BWA to see what they would like to do and which ministries and which use cases they would do. And of course, there's a lot of private sector engagement that happens because private sector is also driving a lot of the use cases here.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dilip. And yeah, really all the best to you and your team for driving and supporting the innovation with digital assets in India. And I'm definitely looking forward to working with you in the future.
I was wondering whether you're coming to the Global FinTech Festival.
I was there a couple of years ago. Probably will try. Let's see. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Good.
Alec, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilip and Rehan, on those insights into the Indian digital asset sector. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, TRM Labs, SwiftX, XDC Network, OKX, and CoinSpot.